0 секунд, 0 секунд. Лига сдохла. Блин, скучаю по Атласу 2017 года. Очень скучаю. Больше всего нравился этот Атлас. Всасывает. Блин, Конквереры 3 года уже, офигеть, время идет. Прикиньте, в 2019 году Конквереры вышли, а такое ощущение, будто бы вообще недавно. Немножко потише сделаем, совсем чуть-чуть. Что-то громковато. Так.
Hi, I'm Chris Wilson from Grinding Gear Games. Thank you for joining us as we unveil Path of Exile's next big expansion, Siege
Я не
of
думаю,
the
что это нужно
Atlas.
переводить, правильно?
Since the Atlas of Worlds was introduced in 2016, we have released 3 large endgame expansions, each evolving Path of Exile's endgame in a different way.
Он рассказывает про то, что они, начиная с 2016 года, анонсировали 3 расширения Атласа, которые так или иначе расширяли эндгейм.
And on Xbox and PlayStation on February 9th.
Но про
Twitch
PlayStation
drops
эта
are
информация
enabled
не
for today's
нужна.
live stream,
Right?
so make sure you follow the instructions below to link your account and be eligible to earn the Wasteland Wings. We've got a lot to show you in today's live stream, so I'm going to cover a lot of ground quickly. We'll start with a trailer for Siege of the Atlas, and then dive into learning about the pinnacle bosses you'll face as you explore the new
Atlas
Atlas
Customization
worlds.
интересует вас?
We'll then talk about the new way you
Офигеть.
customize your Atlas experience. Rewards are next, with a focus on both the new itemization and crafting
customization.
possibilities for endgame items, and the new unique and currency items you can earn by defeating the pinnacle bosses. Then we'll cover changes in how the Atlas works with its new game systems, before revealing the Archnemesis Challenge League, which launches alongside Siege of the Atlas. After a summary of what game balance changes we're making in this expansion, we'll have a Q&A session where Ziggy D asks me questions from the community. Finally, we'll post the full patch notes as soon as the live stream ends. Let's check out the trailer for Siege of the Atlas.
Все. Готовим покчампы, готовим. Сейчас будет жестко. Замочка нет, ты умираешь.
Zana has chosen exile. But the Atlas of Worlds remains a beacon for Eldritch horrors. We imprisoned the Elder. We placated the Maven. We've been preparing for the arrival of another. But we never expected Thor. They embody insatiable hunger, crushing darkness, searing flame, merciless wrath. If we don't stop them, they will consume everything. This is a war for our very existence.
Там несколько картоходцев было. Охуеть, что это такое? Что? Ебать. Охуеть. Что? Атлас пассивки.
They are here. Stand with us. or we will all perish.
Слушайте, ну жестко. Я так понимаю, у нас будет типа отдельная локация, как в Хейсте, с несколькими мап-девайсами, можно будет прокачивать пассивки. Жестко, жестко.
The events in Siege of the Atlas take place after the defeat of Cirrus. With Zana leaving to pursue her own agenda, Commander Kirik has taken responsibility for defending the Atlas
Зана просто
and
свалила, и
Rayclast
всё.
against whatever eldritch horrors might arrive.
Просто
Because
ушла.
Oriath was decimated by both Katava and then Cirrus, Kirik has moved several map devices to an isolated island in the Kurui archipelago and has established a militia in order to prevent another event like the Cirrus incident. In this expansion, you will join Kirik's militia and will be asked to scout the front lines of the Atlas for threats. After encountering the Maven, you will learn that 2 more eldritch horrors like her or the Elder are on their way to the Atlas. Unlike her though, their intentions are driven by the need to consume absolutely everything they encounter. You must learn what you can do about these entities and attempt to prevent the existential threat they pose to Rayclast. In Siege of the Atlas, the 2 new eldritch horrors are the Searing Exarch and the Eater of Worlds. These are similar to other pinnacle Atlas bosses of the past, such as the Elder, the Shaper, the Maven, and Cirrus.
Стример переводит, так еще переводить, рассказывает про то, что типа здорово, типа новые боссы, которые заменят, по сути, типа прошлых. Там ничего такого не было пока что.
In mid-tier maps, you'll randomly encounter the influence of either the Searing Exarch or the Eater of Worlds. The Maven understands the threat that these eldritch horrors pose to her plans. She will modify your map device so that when entering maps, you can choose to add either the influence of the Maven or any eldritch horror you have encountered.
Нифига. Ты, короче, когда запускаешь мапу, ты можешь выбрать инфлюенс, который будет аффектить эту мапу.
The amount of influence monsters in those maps increases as that eldritch horror gets closer to you. Eventually, you'll encounter either the Black Star or the Infinite Hunger, one of the sub-bosses. You must defeat that boss in order to continue progressing closer to the horror you are pursuing. These bosses have exclusive new unique items in their drop pools. You're likely to have encountered the influence of both horrors by this point, and can choose which one you're pursuing in each map. Finally, in the highest tiers of maps, you will encounter the Searing Exarch or the Eater of Worlds themselves. If you are able to defeat these extremely difficult foes, they can drop their own exclusive new unique items and Eldritch currency items, which we'll describe later in the livestream. Once you have slain the Searing Exarch or the Eater of Worlds once, you can then
Это,
farm them.
кстати,
In order to do so, you must
новый лук
complete a
вот
series
сейчас
of
у
tier 14 or
Чара.
above maps with that Eldritch Horror's influence applied.
Это не МТХ, это вот как раз новый лук.
You'll eventually find a key that allows you to challenge the Black Star or the Infinite Hunger again. As this key to the fight is tradable, it's not a strict requirement that you slay this first boss, but the item rewards will strongly encourage you to do so. After continuing to
Мне
farm
сказали,
tier
что
14
типа
or higher
проходка
horror
будет
influence maps, you will receive
tradable.
another tradable key to fight the Searing Exarch or the Eater of Worlds, giving you another shot at their exclusive rewards. The keys to the farmable versions of these bosses can be rolled like regular maps, but with their own mod pool. This allows you to control the difficulty and rewards even further. Earlier, I mentioned that maps can be influenced by the Searing Exarch or the Eater of Worlds. Before we move on, I wanted to go into more detail about what that actually means. In influence maps, as you defeat enemies, altars themed around the Searing Exarch or the Eater of Worlds occasionally appear where you kill those enemies. These altars give you the choice between 2 options that can either modify your character, influenced monsters, or the boss of the map by increasing rewards but also increasing difficulty. You can encounter multiple altars per area, so sometimes you can drastically affect the difficulty
Когда ты
and rewards
убиваешь
of the map as you
монстров
play
определенного
through it.
влияния,
It's also fine to
в определенном
ignore it and
количестве ты
choose
можешь
not to
выбрать
increase the
пассивку,
difficulty and reward of the map if you feel that it's already
которую
challenging
показали
enough.
пару секунд
An
назад.
example of a modification is altering the map boss so that all of its damage shocks, but also causing it to drop an additional Eldritch currency item as a reward. We'll explain what these new currency items do later in the
И типа
livestream.
благодаря тому, что ты выбрал эту пассивку, есть дополнительный шанс
In the
залутать
last iteration of the Atlas, you needed to use
League
watchstones to
specific
both unlock new maps and raise
приколисы,
the level
которые
of
они
maps
добавляют в эту
across your
лигу.
Atlas. This required grinding conquerors and managing the optimal placement of 16 different watchstones. In Siege of the Atlas, we've removed watchstones and have restored the hidden maps back to the base Atlas so they don't have to be unlocked over time. We've added much of the power from craftable watchstones to Atlas passives so that you can still access the benefits you're used to without the busy work of managing watchstones. Despite the era of watchstones being over, we do really like the ability to raise the tier of maps on your atlas,
Что?
so that eventually all of them are tier 16. To this end, we have introduced void stones. You can earn up to 4 of these, one each from the Uber Elder, the Maven, the Searing Exarch, and the Eater of Worlds.
Короче, каждый этот айтем выпадает с боссов Maven, Элдера и новых 2 боссов.
In Siege of the Atlas, we've removed the concept of Atlas regions entirely. This means that we're saying goodbye to regional
сказали,
Atlas
что
passive
убрали
trees and
пассивки
hello to a
Атласа.
single gigantic
И вот сделали
Atlas
дерево
passive
такое.
tree. Ah, good old Path of Exile. This new tree has over 600 passives available to choose from, and you can earn 117 Atlas passive skill points by completing your Atlas. Each different map you complete the bonus objective of grants you 1 skill point.
Короче, чем больше мап ты закомплитишь, тем больше пассивок ты будешь получать. И в том числе нужно проходить будет на бонус Атласа.
Also, because it's much faster to complete earlier maps on the Atlas, your Atlas point acquisition is pretty front-loaded, letting you quickly establish an Atlas layout that helps you find and profit from your favorite content. We've integrated some skills from past regional Atlas trees and have created several new ones, like secret operations, which turns some of the strongboxes you encounter into a new type of strongbox that drops scarabs. Corrupted Gaze causes abyssal jewels to sometimes drop corrupted with 5 or 6 modifiers rather than a typical 4.
Фига себе.
Ghastly Devotion guarantees that areas that contain ritual altars will always contain 4 altars. Having one massive Atlas tree means that you can deeply specialize in certain types of content without being limited to what was available in a specific region. You can increase how often you encounter your favorite content and can adjust how challenging and
короче, они сказали, что это не привязано к какому-то определенному региону, это работает на все карты, и это пиздец как круто, да. Ты можешь просто бегать любые карты абсолютно, это будет работать.
The topic of map drops is also important here. Powerful characters are capable of playing very juiced maps, which results in them finding a lot of items, including more maps. Often, they get more maps than they actually need. Weaker characters have to be more careful with what mods they add to their maps, and hence find fewer maps. This new Atlas tree lets you choose how much you want to invest in a map tier upgrade that used to be the Atlas completion bonus, which means that powerful characters who don't need extra maps can instead focus those points on improving the rewards from content they play. On the other hand, weaker characters can invest in finding better maps, and can then respec this later on once they're finding a surplus. We'll make the full tree available next week so that you can start planning.
Я ничего не понял, что они имели в виду, если честно. Он начал говорить про то, что типа челы выбирают какую-то одну определенную карту и фулджусят ее, и они стараются типа от этого отказаться. Ну, насколько я понял. Возможно, и что-то не понял.
A regular influenced item you found on the ground usually wasn't of much value, unless it was a certain base type at a specific item level. Influenced items were generally not that useful in early, mid, or even most high-end maps, as they were basically a post-endgame feature. Our new system of Eldritch Implicits allows you to apply Eldritch mods to already good items that you have, so that you have a lot more freedom to choose how you create your best items. You can also start interacting with Eldritch Implicits much earlier in your mapping experience.
С помощью, короче, можно будет имплиситы менять на шмотках крафченных и новые накидывать вот эти Eldritch Fire Damage over time.
Eldritch Implicits replace existing implicit mods, but with a twist. An item is allowed to have one Eldritch Implicit from the Searing Exarch and one from the Eater of Worlds at the same time. These implicits have many different tiers and several ways to interact with them. While playing maps in Siege of the Atlas, you may find some new currency items, Eldritch Ember and Eldritch Ichor, corresponding to the Searing Exarch and the Eater of Worlds, respectively. These currency items can be applied to gloves, helmets, body armors, and overwrite the item's regular implicit mods with new ones from 2 special pools of powerful modifiers. As I mentioned before, an item can have both a Searing Exarch implicit and an Eater of Worlds implicit at the same time. Applying the same type of orb multiple times will overwrite the appropriate mod with the new random
их и можно менять еще.
These gloves have a single Eldritch Implicit mod which grants you the ability to gain rage on hit, rate limited by a cooldown.
Это неплохой, кстати, хороший.
There are 2 Eldritch Implicit mods on this helmet. The first one simply grants some added fire damage with spells. The second implicit causes enemies within a radius near you to be unable to regenerate life. Each mod has 6 tiers of power.
Ну, типа, кстати, вот этот мод, который non-regen, дает ближайшим противникам жесткие.
The first tier of Eldritch Ember or Echo drops on all maps and means that any important
Со всех мап
build-enabling
выпадает
mods are
первый тир.
available without having to complete the entire atlas. The second and third tiers come from exploring maps influenced by the Eldritch horrors, and the
Второй и
fourth tier drops
третий
from the Searing Exarch or the Eater of Worlds
выпадает,
themselves.
когда ты
You may be wondering how you
убиваешь
get
под
access to
влиянием
the fifth
карты,
and sixth
бегаешь.
tiers. This requires some luck and planning. The Maven and her encounters have a chance to drop the Orb of Conflict.
И четвертый, когда ты обычных боссов убиваешь, типа Элдера, Шейпера и так далее, а последний выпадает с Мивины с маленьким шансом.
This allows you to manipulate the balance between the two types of implicits.
Халявный эксплажур. Здорово,
The
интересует
best
такое?
possible outcome is to have a tier 6 and a tier 4 mod at the same time. In order to achieve this, you'd want to apply the highest Eldritch Ember or Eldritch Echo over and over until you have a tier 4 modifier that you want. Then use Orbs of Conflict to try to get it to tier 6 before using more Ember and Echo to lock in the tier 4 mod of the other type that you're looking for. We have made sure that the power of these modifiers is available earlier in maps so that you get access to them when you need them, rather than after you need them. Also, none of the new implicit mods have item level restrictions that prevent them from being applied to an item. There are also conditional versions of Eldritch Implicit mods that are only enabled when specific types of enemies are in your presence. These ramp up in power as the condition gets more restrictive. These conditional mods are designed for players who feel that they have sufficient clear speed for easier monsters and want to specialize in being even more effective against the really tough bosses where it matters. Items with Eldritch Implicits can also have a property of being dominated by one of the Eldritch horrors. If an item has a higher tier Searing Exarch mod, then it is considered dominated by the Searing Exarch. Conversely, if the mod for the Eater of Worlds is higher tier, then it is considered dominated by the Eater of Worlds. Domination matters for three new
Общение
currency
сверху, но
items
оно,
we're
скорее всего,
introducing.
перезаписывает эти
The
имплиситы.
Eldritch Chaos Orb will reroll the prefixes of
Фишка
an item
общения
if it is
перезаписывает,
dominated
если
by the
прокает.
Searing Exarch, or the suffixes if the item is dominated by the Eater of Worlds. The same is true for the Eldritch
Прикольные,
Exalted
кстати,
Orb and the Eldritch
сферы.
Orb of Annulment, which add or remove a prefix or suffix depending on which horror dominates
Это
the item.
пиздец жестко.
These very rare currency items give you a large degree of control over your endgame rare item crafting if you're able to manipulate the Eldritch Implicits correctly.
Айтем левел 90 на
It's important
шмотке
to
было,
note
чи не?
you
Я
can't
не
apply
увидел.
Eldritch Implicit mods
Возможно,
to
да.
influenced items. By that, I mean items that have the old type of Shaper, Elder, or Conqueror influence.
Вот эти арбы можно кидать только на вещи
The Sage of the
с
Atlas
этим
expansion
влиянием.
contains a whole roster
Описание
of
там
new
было
unique
видно, что они
items,
дают.
which drop from the 4 new Atlas bosses we have introduced. All of these are powerful uniques, and we'll show you 6 of them today. The Ashes of the Stars Onyx Amulet increases the level of all of your skill gems and grants them an additional 20% quality. It also improves the reservation efficiency of your skills
14
and lets you
резерва.
level all of your gems faster, which is really
Охуеть.
useful for gems such as Empower and Enlighten. The big boost to quality
Плюс
is very
один к
valuable
all
for
skill
ultimate
гемам
quality gems,
и
as well as
охуеть
certain
сколько
skills like
quality и
curses.
increased experience к Enlighten'ам.
The Dissolution of the Flesh prismatic jewel changes the way that you interact with incoming damage. While you have this jewel equipped, damage is taken in the form of a temporary reservation to your life pool. If you reserve 100% of your life, you die. This allows you to ignore life recovery completely, since the actual amount of life you have left is irrelevant as long as you manage the timing of your life reservation. The Polaric Devastation Opal Ring introduces a new debuff called Covered in Frost, and gives you another way to apply the existing Covered in Ash debuff. This is a solid ring for anyone specializing in either
Что
fire or cold
такое
damage.
Cover
In a
in
similar vein
Ash?
to Covered in Ash, Covered in Frost causes the target to take 20% increased cold damage and lowers their critical strike chance.
Мгм.
The Ceaseless
20 мора.
Feast spiked
Он
gloves have a
дает
new
кольцо.
debuff called Corrosion, which you can stack up on enemies to remove their armor and evasion. This is not only a great way to reduce their physical damage reduction, but the gloves also have an additional bonus that applies when you have stripped away all of the enemy's armor or evasion. We are also introducing a pair of very rare aspirational unique jewels, Forbidden Flame and Forbidden Flesh. Each of these jewels drops from one of the 2 new Pinnacle Atlas
Да их
bosses,
соединить можно,
and they are certainly
100%.
unique in that they must work together to unlock their potential. They require the user of the jewel to be a specific class, and they roll with a modifier that specifies a random ascendancy skill from one of the ascendancies of that class. If you are able to equip both a Forbidden Flame and a Forbidden Flesh jewel that specify the same skill, and if you meet the class requirement, then you will be granted that ascendancy skill. For example, If you're a Deadeye and find a forbidden flame jewel that specifies the Master Surgeon skill from the Pathfinder class, then upon finding and equipping a matching forbidden flesh jewel, you will gain the Master Surgeon skill. These jewels open up many new build possibilities for very late endgame characters. The favored map system
Они дают какие-то обилки, в общем, для определенных классов. Они выпадают заролены на определенный класс. Вот, но какая-то обилка, я так и не понял, что она дает.
Favored map slots can be unlocked by meeting various objectives like completing a tier 16 map or defeating an Elder Guardian. There are 12 favored map slots that can be unlocked. These now apply to all map drops on the Atlas, rather than affecting map drops in just one region. Each slot provides a 10 times multiplier to how frequently its corresponding map drops relative to other maps. You can select 12 different maps as your favored maps, or you can put the same map type in all 12 slots for a massive 120 times boost to its occurrence in your drop pool. This is particularly powerful once you've socketed all 4 Void Stones into your Atlas, making all of your maps tier 16, and with a 120 times multiplier applied to a specific map. In this case, the specific map you have chosen will constitute over 50% of all tier 16 map drops. Sextants can be found from tier 14 onwards and are applied to Void Stones. When you use one on a Void Stone, it affects your whole Atlas. Because Void Stones come from the highest tier content, we've removed simple Sextants and Prime Sextants, as they can no longer be used when you would typically acquire them. We've added the mods from these Sextants to the pool of mods that Awakened Sextants have. Because this dilutes the pool of mods that Awakened Sextants can roll, we've increased the frequency at which you acquire Awakened Sextants. Your existing Simple and Prime Sextants will be converted to Awakened Sextants at the launch of Siege of the Atlas.
Они оставили только Awakened Sextanты, которые выпадают с T14 карт, насколько я понимаю.
With the new Atlas system as context, we've done a balanced pass of all Sextant mods. This resulted in a slight reduction to the amount of content or monsters that a given Sextant mod introduces to an area. We've removed the Nemesis monsters drop 3 additional currency items mod, both because it's busted and because it's incompatible with our future plans for the Archnemesis League content. We've also added a whole bunch of new Sextant modifiers. The general intention behind these new mods is that they give a strong benefit while adding extra difficulty,
Minus
or
Nemesis
reward players for
Sextant.
specializing into having other leagues present in an area. For example, there's a Sextant mod that ensures that all breaches in an area belong to Chayula. So if you can maximize the number of breaches through scarabs, map device modifiers, the Atlas passive tree, or other Sextants, then you've got a whole bunch of valuable Chayula breaches in that map. With the removal of Watchstones, players would have lost the ability to swap in and out Watchstones with different Sextant modifiers on them depending on which maps they were running. We like the strategic use of Sextants, so we've reintroduced this behavior with a new currency item called the Surveyor's Compass. This can be applied to a Void Stone with a Sextant mod on it to itemize that Sextant mod for later use or trade. This currency item drops periodically and is also sold by Carrick for 1 Chaos Orb, similar to how Einhard sells Beastery Orbs. There's no limit on how many you can purchase. With Zana gone, you may be wondering what is happening to her Atlas missions. Well, Carrick is taking over from her, but it works a little differently now. Carrick has assumed the position of commander, and he has important missions for you to carry out in the Atlas. You open these missions at your map device and can run them just like before. However, you won't encounter Carrick inside a map, and you won't be able to apply Carrick objectives to a map itself. Because of this, we've raised the chance that you receive a Carrick Atlas objective when you defeat a map boss. Previously, Zana's missions had completion objectives, but with the removal of the favor system, this stopped mattering. Instead of focusing on completion, Carrick missions now focus more on rewards, and so their purpose is to provide you with additional league content or extra item drops. Instead of your free daily mission being based on the last map you've completed, it's now based on the highest tier map you've completed in this current league. For example, if you completed a tier 16 map, your daily missions will always be high tier maps. Carrick missions can now include additional content like Conquerors, Ritual Encounters, Expedition Encounters, and even Monstrous Treasure, the Former Prophecy that makes the area contain 24 to 36 additional strongboxes with no natural monster inhabitants. Carrick now sells you maps, much like Zana did in the past, except there is now a wider variety of outcomes with variance on the prices, so you should probably go and check what he's selling more frequently in case there's a good deal.
Я сомневаюсь, что какие-то пассивки смогут перебить Nemesis Sextanты.
Carrick can sell maps that come with implicit mods enabling various content. For example, a map that always has a Legion encounter, or maps that have varying degrees of deliriousness on them. As you play through maps, you'll occasionally find Atlas scouting reports, essentially communication about important missions from other people who scouted the Atlas and didn't survive. These items can be used like a currency item to re-roll the set of mission maps that Kirik is offering you.
Нахуя, главное зачем? Валюта, которая позволяет реролить миссии Кирака.
Having all maps be corrupted, always including a Shaper Guardian, Elder Guardian, or Conqueror, having only uncompleted maps available, or adding a breach stone to the selection.
Механика заменит, она будет везде. Как она тебе заменит Nemesis Currency? Просто если не Nemesis будет у тебя везде, но на него похуй. Самое главное, что типа у тебя был Currency с Nemesis модов.
Kirik also sells the aforementioned Surveyor's Compass used to itemize Sextant mods, as well as everything else Zana previously sold, like specific divination cards. Despite them not being part of the core Atlas experience anymore, it's still possible to fight Cirrus and the Conquerors to take advantage of their influence and unique item rewards. Tier 14 or higher map bosses now have a chance to drop maps influenced by the Shaper, the Elder, or a random Conqueror. You can also purchase these maps from Kirik. When you enter the map, you'll be met with hordes of influenced monsters that can drop influenced items. Upon defeating the map boss, a portal will open to the Conqueror's arena. Upon death, the Conqueror will drop a fragment. Each Conqueror has their own fragment.
Это рассказывает про то, что типа доступ к Сирусу будет такой же, как там Куберат Зирик, Шейпер и так далее. Что типа у тебя есть мап Т-16.
We've moved plus level gem modifiers into the global mod pool for amulets. So it's now possible to get the
Они плюс один моды добавили в дефолт моды. Они не теперь не инфлюенс моды, просто дефолт. Это на самом деле, с одной стороны, хуёво и...
These gems can now drop from Maven invitations.
Охуеть. Ладно, вот эти три гемы, которые были, они теперь с Maven Invitation падают. Мультистрайк, что там было, ГМП и КОП. Это новая лига.
These mods can be combined in over 35 recipes to create new, more powerful and rewarding mods. As you play through the league, you'll discover more recipes and learn how to best utilize them to get the most valuable rewards.
Ну,
when you slay regular, rare and magic
видимо, реально засунули мобов, ладно.
They sometimes drop an itemized version of a new Archnemesis monster modifier. You store these in a dedicated inventory panel so they don't clutter your regular inventory. Over the course of each area you play, you'll encounter 4 monsters that are frozen in place, petrified and bound to an Archnemesis.
Ну и типа ты их засовываешь туда, ты бегаешь по обычным мапам, одни выпадают, потом засовываешь сюда, и они вылезают отсюда как дырка.
Then you will receive the fixed reward that corresponds to that modifier. The trick that makes this league awesome is the 4 petrified monsters per area. You see, the mods you apply will accumulate as you play through the area.
И таких дырок на мапе 4, насколько я услышал.
Even though you receive the reward from the first mod when you killed the first petrified monster, you receive a second reward of that type when you kill the second petrified monster. The same applies to the third and fourth fights in the area as well. By the time you defeat the fourth monster, you'll have received the first reward 4 times, the second reward 3 times, and so on. Take care when picking what order you consume your mods so that you can maximize your rewards.
Охуеть, ДПС у тебя, чел. Билд сразу видно. Ладно, хороший дроп, слушай, спасибо, что показал.
As an example of how this works, if you apply both incendiary and hasted to the same monster, then in addition to the rewards that
дропа просто навалило.
You will also receive an itemized Flame Walker mod upon killing the monster. This can then be applied to another petrified monster later on to complete further recipes. These recipe mods yield substantially more dangerous encounters and have more valuable rewards. Even if you're not completing a recipe with your modifiers, you can still combine them to get some ridiculous combinations of rewards. For example, defeating an Innocence-touched enemy grants 3 currency rewards and converts all other rewards into currency. Defeating a mirror image enemy grants a divination card reward and rerolls all rewards 3 times, yielding the rarest result. Killing a Flamewalker enemy grants 3 weapon rewards. Killing a toxic enemy grants a generic reward plus a gem reward. If you were to kill an enemy with all 4 modifiers, you get a total of 9 currency rewards, each rolled 3 times and dropping the best result. But if you apply the mods in the order mentioned above, then as you kill each of the 4 monsters in the area,
он рассказывает, если ты убиваешь по таким забафам, это лиг механику, то тебе выпадает 9 куренси, которые 3 раза ролятся на лучший результат.
As you can see from this example, Even the basic rewards that offer, say, 3 random weapons are really useful because you can combine them with reward conversion mods to take advantage of their high item counts. We're looking forward to seeing what other types of crazy ways you manage to combine your Archnemesis rewards. To prevent you having to backtrack, there are more than 4 possible locations where you may encounter petrified monsters in each area, but only the first 4 you encounter can be empowered and fought. Archnemesis mods cannot be traded with other players. Your progress is your own.
Не трейдабл эти вещи, они привязаны к чару твоему. Их нельзя трейдить.
The fights are fun, the rewards are punchy, and there are a lot of tough decisions about which reward combinations or recipes you can pursue. In Siege of the Atlas, our balance goal is to take 2 very common gameplay archetypes that struggle with endgame content and to buff them so that they're in a much better place compared to other builds.
Сделают? Ну да, скорее всего.
The ones we are targeting are hit damage bow characters and handcasting spellcasters. If you haven't checked out the balance manifesto about these changes that we posted recently, I'd encourage you to read all about them in the patch notes that will be posted when the livestream ends. To be clear, this expansion does have a few of the usual nerfs to the most overperforming builds, but for the most part, the majority of balance changes are buffs. The goal is that players who play hit damage bow builds and handcasting spellcasters are significantly more competitive. Alongside Siege of the Atlas, we're introducing 2 new types of stash tab, one for flasks and one for gems. A side effect of this is that you're able to set your regular tabs to have affinity for flasks or gems, regardless of whether you've purchased the new specialized tabs.
Для фласок добавили для гемов вкладки. Можно кастомизировать свои премиум вкладки. Но или это отдельная вкладка покупается. Насколько я понимаю, это отдельная вкладка. Левел 38 гема, я, кстати, тоже заметил. Что за хуйня, почему не 39-я? You can also use the drop-down to change the sort order between item level, base type, and quality. This allows you to quickly find flasks of a certain type, potential flasks for vendor for glass blowers baubles, or high item level flasks for crafting. Remember that regardless of whether you've purchased these new tabs, you'll still be able to set up affinities for gems or flasks on your existing stash tabs. Нет, ладно, это не так работает. Короче, нужно новую вкладку покупать. Понял, хорошо. Where players will race to be the first to kill a trio of bosses. The Maven, the Searing Exarch, and the Eater of Worlds. The event will take place in the hardcore solo self-found Archnemesis League. We have some interesting prizes in store for the winners. Keep an eye on the news next week for more details about how this event will work and what its prizes are. На гемы нормально пособирать ГЦП первую неделю, да, на самом деле. Ради этого только и стоит покупать хорошие вкладки купил.
Our new packs are called the Worm and Emberkeep Supporter Packs.
Ладно.
Like our recent League packs, there are 3 tiers available, each of which include points equivalent to the cost of the pack, plus many exclusive cosmetic microtransactions like apparition effects, armor sets, weapon skins, forum badges, titles, and social frames.
Дракон классный.
The Worm series comes with an exclusive pet, and the Emberkeep series comes with an exclusive weapon effect. These new packs are in addition to the 2022 core packs that we released recently. Remember to check those out if you haven't already. That concludes the reveal portion of this livestream. Keep an eye on our news next week as we unveil more details about the Siege of the Atlas expansion and the Archnemesis League. In the meantime, these reveals are already live on YouTube for you to link to your friends in case they missed the live stream.
Можете сайтик Poe скинуть, пожалуйста.
And join us as we explore the Atlas alongside you next week. It's now time for the Q&A. If you have any questions about what we've shown today, please get them ready because I'm about to be joined by Ziggy D as we answer your questions from Twitch chat.
Кому-нибудь другому. Окей. Переработаны механики Атласа. Большинство механик Атласа были переделаны с целью создать более проработанную и более простую для понимания систему. Регионы исчезли, так что специализация вашего Атласа влияет на каждую открываемую карту. Где раньше вам нужно было собрать 15-16 камней хранителя, теперь требуется заполучить 4 камня пустоты, которые позволяют повысить уровень всех без исключения карт в Атласе до 16-х. Камням пустоты можно применять секстанты, превращать их свойства в предметы и торговать ими. Командир Керак предлагает широкий круг задач в Атласе, добавляющих ценное содержимое на ваши карты. Но на самом деле, то, что у тебя нету 16 камней в Атласе, это жестко. Это намного ускоряет прогресс. Ну, как и в этой лиге, только это намного должно быть быстрее.
Дерево пассивных умений. Прощайтесь с региональными деревьями пассивных умений Атласа и встречайте одно агроматное дерево с более чем 600 умениями, действующими на весь Атлас сразу. Каждая карта, а также разнообразные задания Атласа дарует вам по завершении очко умений Атласа. В дополнение к лучшим умениям из региональных деревьев мы создали много совершенно новых умений, которые позволят вам определить свою собственную степень риска и награды в Атласе. А тут же... тут что-то есть. Но это я видел. Это показывали с регионами. И регионы чекали это все. Уникальные боссы карт могут с 10% шансом добавить бесплатное случайное свойство вашей машины картоходца. Выпадающие в областях карты с 12% шансом будут уровнем выше. Но эта пассивка хорошая, если ты просто атлас комплитишь, залутать кучу дейликов и посустейнить карты, и все. Что-то есть еще интересное. Доклады разведки, это, насколько я понимаю, вот эта штука. Да, которая позволяет тебе реролить задание Кирака. Но про эти тиры уже сказали, что первые тиры, они будут выпадать с карт начального левела. Просто когда ты бегаешь Атлас. Второй и третий тиры, если я не ошибаюсь, выпадают исключительно с карт, когда ты их бегаешь под влиянием одного из боссов. Четвертый тир выпадает с двух этих боссов, которых добавили. И последний тир выпадает с моего приглашения. Это сферы, которые ты юзаешь на вещи с влиянием новыми, которые можно перекрафчивать. Это сферы, которые просто слэмят влияние на вещь, а это, к примеру, шмотки с влиянием. А Сирус уберет жемчужные вачтоны. Ну да, получается, да. Вот этот амуль супер жесткий, который дает... Там, я не знаю, какие значения, до каких значений он ролится. Здесь написано 12%, но на трансляции было 14% резерва. Вот. Плюс 1 ко всем уровням камней, 8% увеличения опыта, и еще квалити там до 20% скорее ролится, потому что там 19 было на трансляции. И это очень сильно. Во-первых, это очень сильно для работы, потому что это 14% резерва, это очень много. Плюс ко всему, ты очень быстро гемы качаешь на легионах, если ты будешь юзать этот камень. Удаляет весь энергетический щит, теряемое в результате получения урона здоровья. Вместо этого удерживается до тех пор, пока вы не перестанете получать урон в течение 2 секунд. Это надо смотреть, как это работает, потому что на вординге это не очень понятно. Ну, кольцо там, оно просто дает 20% мура, в зависимости от состояния, которое оно накладывает, к типу урона, который ты наносишь. Вот, и вот эти 2 гема, их можно оба поставить. Они лимитед на 1, но их можно 2 поставить вместе. Их надо 2 ставить, иначе 0 эффект. Их нужно обязательно 2 поставить. Активирует у мастера хирург при наличии совпадающего свойства на запретной плоти. Это жижа, которая будет выпадать. Когда мы бегаем апы, их можно будет просто вставлять на этот алтарь и собирать комбинации из них. И чем лучше комбинацию ты собираешь, тем лучше награда будет выпадать. Соревнования по убийству боссов неинтересно. Новая секция тайника, это понятно. Не знаю, для фласок full useless, кто это вообще будет юзать, не очень понятно. А насчет камней, ну, камни это полезно, потому что ГМПшки можно будет фармить. Обычно у тебя какая проблема? В инвентаре постоянно не скапливаются, ты должен искать вкладку, потом из этой вкладки ты собираешь все эти гемы, это очень запарно. Здесь нормальная фильтрация по квалити, можно ГМПшки нормально будет собирать. А что с наборами поддержки? Го почекаем. Что за наборы вообще? Блин, дракон классный. Вот этот вот мне нравится, эффект дракона. Ну, 4000 за... Значит, такое качество всратое. О, ладно, нормально забагалось, видимо. Ну... Я не знаю. Ну, Но это не самый всратый сет, скажем так, который я видел. В сочетании, на самом деле, с крыльями он неплохо выглядит. Там же больше нету ничего. А, ну там типа лук показали. Ну там лук, по-моему, всратый какой-то был только что. Такой, да. Немножко всратый. Что тут у нас еще есть? Крылья получены, это хорошо, да. Монет еще много, ну да, еще куча монет, которые ты можешь потратить на другие МТХ. Будет качество какахи, у меня с жатвы. Со зрителями, как в той лиге, балакать будешь? Как со зрителями? Возьми за 7500, можно апнуть будет потом на... Да блин, вы чё? Да у меня нет столько денег халявных. Типа халявных я имею в виду, которые я могу на МТХ потратить. Тут там МДС сидели обсуждали. Не знаю, посмотрим, может быть сегодня зайду немножко попозже. Свободный холл, да. После переезда я как-то более аккуратно к таким покупкам отношусь. Но мне этот, кстати, саппорт-пак больше нравится, чем прошлый.